Task-based language teaching, TBLT, principles and practices. TBLT emphasizes a needs-based approach to content selection, learning to communicate through interaction in the target language, use of authentic texts in the learning environment, providing opportunities for learners to focus not only on language, but also on how they learn, valuing learners' personal experiences as contributing elements to learning, connecting classroom learning to language use outside the classroom. Defining task, real-world or target tasks. These refer to how language is used in the world beyond the classroom. Examples include booking a hotel room, buying groceries, or filling out a form. Pedagogical tasks. These are classroom activities designed to prepare learners for real-world tasks. They involve communicative language use with an emphasis on meaning rather than grammatical form. However, this doesn't mean form is ignored. Grammatical knowledge is still essential to express meaning, and the two are deeply connected. When real-world tasks are adapted for classroom use, they become pedagogical tasks, definitions of tasks. Willis and Willis, 2001. Define a task as a classroom activity where learners use the target language for a communicative purpose to achieve an outcome. Nunyan distinguishes between real-world tasks, simulate real-life language, use pedagogical tasks, bridge the gap between classroom practice and real-life communication examples. Real-world, role-playing a doctor's appointment. Pedagogical, finding differences between two pictures. Long, 1985. A task is a piece of work done for oneself or others, either freely or for a reward. It includes actions like dressing a child, typing a letter, taking a test, or helping someone cross a street. These are the kinds of things people do daily, at work, in daily life, or during leisure, and all involve language use. Richards et al., 1986. A task is an activity carried out in response to language input, like drawing a map while listening to directions. It may or may not require spoken or written output, but should include a clear criterion for successful completion. A variety of task types can make language learning more communicative because they provide a purpose beyond language practice for its own sake. Breen, 1987. A pedagogical task is any structured language learning effort with a defined goal, appropriate content, a clear procedure, and expected outcomes. Tasks range from simple drills to complex group problem-solving or simulations. Ellis, 2003. A task is a work plan that makes learners process language pragmatically to achieve an outcome. It requires a focus on meaning and use of the learner's own linguistic resources. The task design may guide learners toward certain forms, but the main aim is communicative. Tasks can involve any combination of productive, receptive, and oral written skills, and trigger various cognitive processes. Summary definition. A pedagogical task is a piece of classroom work that involves learners in understanding, producing, or interacting in the target language with a focus on expressing meaning. Learners must draw on their grammatical knowledge in a meaningful way. A task should also be self-contained and function as a complete communicative act with a clear beginning, middle, and end. The difference between a task and a language exercise. Tasks focus primarily on meaning. They engage learners in using language for communication, negotiating, expressing, understanding. Exercises focus primarily on form. They are designed to practice specific grammar points, vocabulary, or structures. While both tasks and exercises aim at language learning, they differ in the means used to reach that goal. Tasks aim to develop language through real use. Exercises aim to build accuracy and control through focused practice. Ellis, 2003. Critical features of a task. Ellis, 2003. 1. A task is a work plan. A task is a plan for learner activity. It can take the form of formal materials, like a worksheet, or emerge spontaneously during teaching. The plan provides a structure, but how the learners carry it out may vary. 2. A task involves a primary focus on meaning. Tasks are designed to get learners to use language pragmatically, to express meaning rather than to display grammar. Most tasks involve some kind of gap, for example, information gap, reasoning gap, opinion gap, which motivates learners to use language to close that gap. Learners decide what linguistic and non-linguistic tools they need to complete the task. 3. A task involves real-world language. Use tasks often simulate real-world communication. Even if a task is artificial, the language processes it requires, asking questions, clarifying, responding, solving misunderstandings, are the same as in real life. 4. A task can involve any of the 4 language skills a task may involve: listening or reading, receptive skills; speaking or writing, productive skills; combining skills, for example, listen and respond, read and write. It may also involve both dialogic, interactional, and monologic, extended use of language. 5. A task engages cognitive processes. Completing a task requires learners to think, to select, classify, sequence, reason, and evaluate information. This mental activity contributes to learning. 6. A task has a clearly defined communicative outcome. The task has a non-linguistic goal, a practical result, like solving a problem, making a decision, or creating something. Language is the means to achieve that goal, not the end in itself. Communicative language teaching, CLT. The core idea of CLT is that language is a tool for communication, not just a collection of grammar rules, vocabulary lists, or pronunciation drills. Product-oriented versus process-oriented teaching. Traditional approaches focus on products, correct grammar, vocabulary, and structures. Communicative approaches focus on the process of using language to achieve goals. Breen, 1984, emphasized that the means and ends of language learning should not be separate. The act of communicating should itself be both the method and the goal. Learners learn to communicate by communicating. CLT versus Tblt. CLT is a broad educational philosophy. It's influenced by theories from linguistics, psychology, anthropology, and sociology. Tblt is a specific realization of CLT. It's often considered the strong version of communicative language teaching. Ellis, 2003. Humanistic approaches in ELT. Humanistic approaches focus on the learner, not just the teacher or content. The teacher becomes a facilitator rather than the central figure. Key beliefs. Learning should include emotions, not just cognition. Students should be supported in reaching their full personal potential. The learning environment should be supportive, respectful, and meaningful. Task-based teaching aligns with humanistic principles because it gives students agency and involvement in real communication. Shifts. Focus from passive learning to active participation encourages self-expression and personal relevance in the language learning process. Types of syllabus. Procedural syllabus focuses on learning tasks rather than language forms or meanings. Examples: map reading, scientific experiments, story writing. The Bangalore Project, Prabhu, 1987, is a key example. Process syllabus. Not preset. Content is negotiated with learners during the course. Outcomes depend on learners' views of classroom activities. Encourages awareness of learning strategies. Experiential learning, basis for task-based language teaching. Starts from the learner's personal experience. Emphasizes active involvement, learning by doing. Focuses on knowledge transformation, collaboration, and self-directed learning. Promotes intrinsic motivation and social skills. Phases of experiential learning. Concrete experience. Learners engage in an experience. Reflective observation. Learners reflect on their experience. Conceptual thinking. Learners develop new ideas or modify concepts. Active experimentation. Learners apply ideas to new situations. Task components. Vertical bar. Goals. Vertical bar. Input. Vertical bar. Task. Vertical bar. Procedures. Vertical bar. Teacher role. Vertical bar. Learner role. Vertical bar. Settings. Vertical bar. Goals. Examples include developing speaking confidence, improving writing skills, encouraging negotiation. Input. Data learners use during tasks from teachers, textbooks, or learners themselves. Examples of real-world tasks. Complete application forms, for example, driver's license. Express feelings through drama or poetry. Make appointments. Shop in a supermarket. Negotiate solutions to problems. Use the telephone input sources letters. formal, informal, newspaper extracts, pictures, application forms, memos, photographs, maps, menus, diary entries. Authenticity in language teaching. Authentic materials are texts or speech originally created for real communication, not for language teaching. Brown and Monash, 1993, suggest authenticity is a continuum, not just authentic versus non-authentic. Genuine, created purely for real-life use, for example, newspapers, real conversations. Altered, real texts slightly modified, for example, added visuals or glosses, but meaning unchanged. Adapted, simplified vocabulary or grammar for learners. Simulated, written for teaching but designed to look like real texts. Minimal/incidental, made specifically for classroom use with no attempt at authenticity. Procedures. Procedures describe what learners do with the input during tasks. Procedural authenticity means classroom activities replicate real-life language use. Task types, information gap activities. Transfer known information from one person or form to another. Examples: pair work sharing parts of a picture, completing tables from a text. Reasoning gap activities derive new information through inference or deduction. Examples: creating a teacher's timetable from given data, deciding the best travel route. Opinion gap activities: express personal opinions or feelings. Examples: story completion, discussing social issues. Additional activity types. Questions and answers. Learners secretly choose language items to create an information gap, then guess others' choices. Dialogues and role plays can be scripted or improvised. Learner choice and clear goals improve engagement. Matching activities. Recognize and pair items. For example, bingo matching dialogues. Communication strategies. Practice paraphrasing, gestures, feedback, simplifying language. Pictures and picture stories. Use visuals for storytelling, sequencing, or memory games. Puzzles and problems. Use guessing, reasoning, imagination, for example, logic puzzles. Discussions and decisions. Share information to reach group decisions, for example, what to take on a desert island. Teacher roles. Teachers play 3 key roles in Tblt. Facilitator, supports and guides the communicative process. Participant, joins in activities when appropriate. Observer and learner, monitors and learns from the classroom dynamics. Sometimes tension arises if learners expect direct instruction, but the teacher's role is more to facilitate than to model language explicitly. Learner roles. Learners take an active, central role in communication and learning. There can be a difference between what teachers intend as learning outcomes and what learners actually gain. Settings refers to how the classroom or learning environment is arranged for tasks. Tasks may be done entirely in the classroom or partially outside it, depending on the design.